when COVID-19 meant 11-year-old Megan Chalia was no longer in school, Megan went looking for something to do. She says she's always wanted to stain and refinish floors, but instead she and her dad worked on a string art project that she'd seen on the Lowe's website using scraps from their garage. Wood, nails that they hammered into the wood in the shape of a heart, and red string that she strung around the nails to make that heart shape red with the string. Megan welcomed the activity during those times when there just wasn't much to do because everything was shut down because of COVID-19. She needed that something to do in this new normal of COVID-19. She gave the art to her mom for Mother's Day, and of course her mom welcomed the art. And she welcomed it so much that she showed it off to all of her coworkers. And then the coworkers wanted pieces of it. And then they wound up sending it all over the country to family members. And then they wound up putting it on Facebook and selling pieces of it. And Megan raised money through that for nurses at the local hospital, the University of Louisville Hospital, raising money for these nurses. She had watched and seen how the nurses were working so hard with the COVID patients. And instead of raising money for PPE and those kinds of things, she wanted to raise money for these nurses to be able to do self-care, to take care of themselves in a way to kind of, we often talk about fill your cup. She wanted these nurses to be able to fill their cup and take care of themselves so that they then would be able to take care of all these other people. Our story today that we're looking at is about doing and welcoming. We're moving away from the series on spiritual disciplines, and we're going to be looking at Matthew for a while now, going through the Gospel of Matthew. Now, the passage today really is barely a story. It's really only 2 verses. But in those 2 verses, it uses the word welcomes 6 times. It's all about welcoming each other and then welcoming Jesus, because as we welcome the other, we are welcoming Jesus in this passage. So let me pull it up here. It's Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. It's going to sound kind of windy-windy. But here it goes. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. So, little bitty short scripture passage there, but let me tell you the backstory. Just prior to the scripture passage, Jesus has called the 12 apostles and he has sent them out to go on the mission. He sent them out, given them all the gifts that they need so that they can proclaim the good news, cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons. So all the work that he's been doing, he has enabled the disciples, the apostles, to do that work as well. And when we hear verses 40 through 42, now I have to admit, when I hear words like righteous and reward, I wind up hearing like holier than thou, because that's just been programmed. That's the word I'm looking for. Programmed. That wasn't really how I was brought up, but it just our culture kind of makes us think of holier than thou, or people who are really holy or whatever. But I want to call our attention to Matthew 5 and the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, because we really need to read Sermon on the Mount throughout all of Matthew as we're listening to this, because the righteous and those who will get the reward, these are the people that we need to be thinking about. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers, because they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. And blessed are you when people revile you on my account, when you are caring for these who are poor in spirit and who mourn and who meek, and for those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So what Matthew is talking about are not holier than thou and prideful people, or those who are, I guess, on a pillar and seen as really holy and righteous, but those who really are poor in spirit and are mournful and are meek. Perhaps even like our nurses who are needing to take care of themselves and not wear themselves out so that they can take care of the sick. There's an interesting little note. I just love this in this scripture passage when Jesus says, and whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple. These little ones. He's talking about children, little kiddos. If he gave a cup of water to these children. Welcome. Giving a cup of water to kids is welcoming. What our story is showing us today is that caring for another can simply be providing a basic need. Water is a practice of welcoming another. During these days of COVID, there are many simple ways of caring for each other and therefore welcoming each other. Recently, I was on a Zoom call with the bishop and all the people who were up for commissioning an ordination this year. And Bishop Karen asked us how we were doing. And she brought up the fact that, just in a matter of hours, we had to flip and make course corrections in how we were doing ministry because of the virus. And then during that time in that week, the racial issues were coming to the fore as well. Several people spoke of how the leadership at their churches were working on plans of how to do their best at relaunching gathering and worship in the light of the virus. And I just want you to know that our leadership is doing that as well, and we hope to be launching small group gatherings very soon. After a bit, one of my friends, Candy, spoke up. Candy is the chaplain right over here at Craig Hospital. All of us had been together up in Casper for our BOM interviews. I don't know if you remember, I went for my ordination interviews back in March. And that week, I came back and I did a memorial service on Saturday, and that Sunday we did not have worship because of the virus. That's how quickly things happened. And so that was the week that COVID hit. So we were at those interviews in Casper, and Candy tells the story of how she came back home here, and that next morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, she was at Craig Hospital. And because she is the chaplain of the hospital, she is on the ethics committee of that hospital. And in that meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning, in the midst of this pandemic hitting us, slamming us, right then, that moment, they were having to make decisions on how they would determine who would get ventilators if Craig Hospital became overwhelmed with COVID patients. I have never seen Candy so vulnerable. She's a pretty tough cookie. I've seen her angry a lot. I've seen her spunky even more than that. I've never seen her on the verge of tears. This was the Candy I was watching on this Zoom call. And Candy looked at us and she said, "Thank you for carefully considering your relaunch plans for your church and your worship." And then she said, "Please follow them." And then she said, "Please wear your masks. And please practice social distancing. Please," she pled to us. "Because if this thing blows up, I'll be the one that has to decide who gets a ventilator and who doesn't." This is how we practice welcoming. We practice it by wearing a mask. We practice it by social distancing. We practice it by making good plans for our churches of how to relaunch social gatherings and how to relaunch worship, where we are caring for our vulnerable people, our older folks, our people who have compromised immunities, and our younger people. And it says to give a cup of water to these children. These are children who have parents and grandparents. Even though children may be more protected, although they're saying that's not necessarily true either, but you're their grandparents. Yeah, after listening to Candy, suddenly wearing a mask and practicing social distancing took on a whole new meaning. A meaning of welcoming. A welcome to health. A welcome to life. But not necessarily a life really for me, but a life for others. A cup of water. Shelbin is one of the nurses that received a gift from Megan, who made those wooden and string art hearts. She actually got a wooden heart, but then also a monetary gift. She says, when we walk by and we're having a down day, we're going to see these hearts, referring to the wooden string art heart, and we're going to know that Megan is with us. And it is gonna uplift us through any moment that we're going through. And we're gonna feel that love, and that's gonna be forever. What is it that Jesus said in this 2 verses of Scripture? Whoever welcomes you welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one, God, who sent me. Let's fill cups till they're overflowing.